All right, so we have, I think, first order of business is a call to order of the Energy Committee meeting on January 20th, 2021. We have also a quorum here, as long as I have this correct. Peg, am I missing anything else that I need to do in order to call this to order?
No, you just need to recognize the time and the recording's going and off you go.
Okay, so the time currently is 7:07 p.m. and we are recording this so that it can be played back at a future date if necessary. We have on the call today, so I'm Jason Collier, so I am the chair of the Energy Committee now. Steve Broder is the clerk. Eloise Sauls is also a Energy Committee member. Kelly Brown is here as our guest, and Peg is here as our Board of Selectmen representative.
Our audience.
Yes.
No, I'm the one who complains the most about the cost of the electric bills over at the town barn. So, you know, this is a very high on my list to see it chug along and see what we can do.
Rightfully so. After what Steve and I toured in that. So first thing I want to do is have a motion for approval of the minutes from the last meeting.
So move.
Seconded,
Okay.
I believe.
All in favor? Aye, or
Aye.
raise your hand.
Eloise, yes.
Steve, yes.
Jason, yes. Okay, that's unanimous. Minutes are approved. So next we will jump in, instead of jumping into the open issues right away, I want to turn over to our esteemed guest, Ms. Kelly Brown, as you have some information that will hopefully educate us a bit about energy and what's out there and what's available, and talk to us a little bit about the Meta Grant that we've obtained. One of the things on our open issues and items for tonight is to make sure that we can put ourselves in a position to be able to select some vendors to come out and give us that consultation so that we can get a better understanding of what our options are for that town barn, which is consuming quite a bit more energy than I think anybody thought that it would. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Kelly.
Sure. So thanks for having me here. Margaret was saying that you guys are, is everyone newer? I know Eloise isn't new, but are you guys mostly new members to the Energy Committee?
Yes.
So I know I've had a lot of interaction with Tim in the past and other people that have been on the Energy Committee. I actually haven't been to an Energy Committee meeting in quite a while.
Okay.
The way that I would interact with individuals is either reaching out directly for different reasons as part of becoming or being a green community, or because I know that one of the projects that was done under a recent grant, which was the controls project over at the town offices, required a lot of additional work. And so there was meetings between the vendor and the town, being that it was a green communities grant, I met members that way as well.
Okay.
So thanks for having me tonight.
Yeah.
And congrats on your Meta Grant. So yeah, if you want, I thought I'd kind of pull up a presentation. Berlin's been an active green community, so I definitely have a little slide on Meta, but we can talk about municipal energy technical assistance and kind of next steps for you guys. I also wanted to talk about the Green Communities program in general, because you guys are really in a good position to come in for more grants too. So I thought it'd be helpful to know kind of go over the Green Communities program as well, because that's been a bigger role within the Energy Committee than just the Meta Grant.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. And just for so you know, Steve, Eloise, and I are the only Energy Committee members left. So all those folks that you worked with before are no longer part of the Energy Committee.
Okay.
Steve and I have not reached out to them too much yet. I've talked with Greg Tremelling a little bit, as I know him, but what you're working with here is your Energy Committee in full.
Actually, I mean, so I know Eloise is probably not from Judy Booman, right? Eloise was the point of contact for Green Communities, who was on the select board for many years. She helped get Berlin designated and was the person walking around on site visits, submitting all the information we need. And so she was like I want to say a one-woman show for like many years, helping
Right.
Berlin through the process. So having more than one person on the call is better than I think Berlin had for a while.
Excellent.
She did a great job too.
I
All
agree.
right. Yes.
She moved to Devon's.
I know, she called me. I actually called her about something else unrelated, and then she still asked about Berlin and how you guys are doing. So I just always like to point out, like the Green Communities program serves as the hub on all municipal energy related matters. Great topic tonight would be municipal energy technical assistance. A lot of the time we go out to communities and they definitely hear the most about the Green Communities Grant program. It's really where a lot of our funds come from and going towards those type of projects, but we do really serve as a role to help communities, whether they are looking to put solar on a building, such as what you guys are going to talk about, or looking at other things that fall under the energy umbrella. You can always reach out to me for those things as well. So under the Green Communities Division, we do have a lot of programs and resources. The Green Communities Designation Grant Program, like I said, it came out in 2010. It's been the flagship program for the Green Communities Division for more than 10 years. Mass Energy Insight, which I don't know if you guys have gotten on yet, but it's our free web-based energy management tool. It's definitely the way to track your energy usage on different buildings. Have you guys logged into Mass Energy Insight?
We have not. We were just talking to Margaret about that a little bit, about how we can gain access to that so that we can take a look at what we've got out there and then that we're logging it and it's accurate. And
okay, so
I believe Amy inputs the data. Amy Grenier, she works in the accounting office.
okay, I was going to say, you guys, in past years, you did a lot of the self-reporting, which I'll talk a little bit about as a green community. Tim was doing it for a while. Judy did it for a while. When Margaret came on board, she's like, you know, we really need some additional help than this because it's always kind of been volunteers and that can be challenging. So the fourth bullet you'll see is what's called regional energy planning assistance. And this is where we provide dollars towards the RPAs. You guys have Central Mass Regional Planning Commission. And what those dollars result in is billable hours for you guys to have help like filling out that report. So your annual report this year was actually submitted by the Central Mass Regional Planning Commission. And they also, I think, put in, I believe they did some data entry in Mass Energy Insight for you. But that doesn't mean that they don't want people within the town to help out and be able to track the usage too, such as energy committee members. And more than one person can have access to Mass Energy Insight. One thing you guys can do is, I know there's been multiple people prior that have had access. You could always make up a general account for your committee that you guys could share. And then I would encourage you probably at this point to just have read only. If you're going to enter data, it makes sense. But if you're just looking at the reports and you're not doing any data entry, it's just easier to just have read only. And that gives you access to really the reporting side.
okay.
And it can always change. If you ever wanted to get full access, it's not hard to do. But usually when there's more than one person in a community accessing, unless they need to enter data, it's not really necessary.
Okay.
And then you can see the third bullet is that municipal energy technical assistance. So Meta's offered once a year, was really happy when you guys decided to take advantage of it, apply for assistance to help out with your highway barn and looking at the solar. My understanding that was always the intention, right? Yeah. So are you guys just looking for guidance on how to move forward with it?
I think we're looking for guidance. I think we're looking for almost like a reassessment, because I know a lot has changed in the solar world and from an efficiency perspective and what, you know, and I think we wanted to ensure that we could take a look at both roof and ground mount, because there's a fair amount of ground mount space out behind the building. I know some of it's being used a little bit now, but by the folks in the barn, but again, there's a fair amount of property there that could leverage a ground mount. And the thing that jumped out at us, so Steve and I went and took a tour of the building and we're speaking with the folks in there. And in looking at the numbers, even the, it was supposed to originally be a net zero building.
Yeah.
But based on the numbers that we're seeing coming out of that building for energy consumption, It's not, it wouldn't be projected to be, it wouldn't be a net zero building if they had installed the system that they were looking to install, because I think it was going to cover 700 or 800 kilowatt hours or something of that nature. And it was, I don't know the exact measurement, but it's actually been using about 1,100. So it's
Okay.
about 125% or so of what was originally expected.
Do you guys know why it's consuming more, or where the additional energy consumption is coming from? It sounds like the EUI is not as low as what it was intended to be.
Steve, what do you think?
I mean, so from what I saw on the drawings, so the proposal for the building looked like the intention was to do net zero. But then when the drawing set came out, the drawing set itself said it would handle about 70 or 80% of the capacity of the building. Not really sure why. I don't know if it maybe the intention of what happened versus the reality of the building that was designed didn't quite line up when it came to like the real world, south facing and actual like roof real estate. So we're not entirely sure. We haven't really dove into the energy consumption of the building, because there's a lot of ways to find out, a lot of things you can look at to figure out what is going on with the.
Yeah, I was more concerned. I was more trying to figure out if what they estimated it would consume and the load of the building is higher than what they projected. And that's why it could be equipment, it could be, not following the schedules, depends on what was put into the building. But it sounds like it's just, which sometimes happens with plug loads, like
Right.
More sophisticated buildings have higher plug loads. And that could be part of it as well.
Yeah, so something like when we toured the building, something that was said to us is that, in the big like parking area in the back, like in the winter, when these giant pieces of equipment come in, they're cold. And, you've got this essentially a giant ice cube coming in and getting parked in the building. And so the building's got to do its thing, and it's got to keep itself, at a certain set point. So it's like automatically, if it snows, if it, and these guys are out plowing most of the night, or just working out there in the winter, you've got a big heavy piece of steel coming in, and your building's going to be working overtime to keep up with that. I don't know if maybe that wasn't factored in.
Meaning that it's working harder to heat it.
Yeah.
So I actually haven't had that ever come up before. Sometimes like fast closing doors, things like that, how much, heat you're losing, how much cool air is getting in. Sometimes that can come up. I don't know if they put in fast closing doors, but sometimes those can be good and bad, because I've seen them also get hit sometimes and had issues on that end sometimes with these type of facilities. But as far as the PV system portion, that's why you guys applied for Meta, the next step, so I'll have to take a look. I thought Margaret might have been on this call. She wrote the scope. So if the scope of the Meta grant refers to looking, and I thought me and her discussed this before she submitted, looking at ground mounted and roof mounted, then that would be part of what you would look at, and it would be included in, what the consultant would look at. So the next step is really just have you guys decided on who to work with and hired a consultant?
We have not. So that was one of the things. We got a list, but it's just a big list, right? So one of the things that we wanted to do is find a way to get some recommendations as well. I know they're preferred vendors, but we wanted to work with you as well to see if there's anybody or a few in particular that you've worked with that we might be able to talk to.
So there's one of the easiest ways to do it is to, we're not allowed to really recommend, but what I can do is I can always give you a couple communities maybe to chat with that have done it before you. That have worked with people that they'll recommend. And that's, the biggest step. And then that person that you hire, like that's really what you need to do, because once you bring that person on, they're going to help you like assess the building, what size system, do you need to do, you know, should you do roof and ground? You know, what are you looking at for an offset? Is there going to be excess to the building? Would you need a Schedule Z? That type of thing, and walk you through all that, then help you put something out to bid, and then also review proposals. And then they should, you know, the further you can get. So just keep in mind, like the dollars, utilize them the best you can, and make sure that, you know, you want them to stretch as far as you can too. And, you know, they can really walk you through the whole process as long as the dollars are still there. So sometimes if you take too much time up front going over some things, that it's definitely an opportunity to educate yourselves through the process, but then you just don't want to take up too much time with meetings and things like that that might take away from having a consultant help you further along. Because you definitely want them to be there for negotiations, understanding the contracts, terminology, things like that.
Yep. Okay.
And then once you sign with someone, Margaret would submit the contract to us, and then that's when the first release of funds comes, after you have a contract with someone. And then after that, it's as they're in, I believe, as Margaret gets invoiced by the consultant, then we would process them.
Okay.
And then depending on who you guys go with, they're very familiar with the program. I mean,
Okay.
there's a couple consultants that have helped many communities with solar, and through Meta is a very common way.
Okay. Awesome. Is there any, if you were to list the 3 communities that you would say have been most successful in installing PV, who would you say that they are?
So your project's a little smaller. Like I have one community working on putting like, you know, a 3 meg project on their solar landfill. So like that's a whole different type of a project. Like you're really looking at completing hopefully your zero net building and offsetting all the usage by renewables. But I'm trying to think, I mean, I have different communities that have been successful in different ways. But a lot of them do, to be honest, they're more off takers. So they probably bought into other solar projects and are through PPAs in that way, and maybe have like one site, but most of their load is coming from renewables.
Okay. I see what you're saying. Interesting.
So I don't think I have too many communities that have done multiple. Actually, I do have a couple that have had, like, they have campuses. So they have a few schools on one campus and they put PV systems on a couple different schools.
Okay.
And I mean, that worked out pretty well.
Okay.
Is that what you were looking for?
Yeah. So that we can, you know, because I'm assuming those communities that might have done a similar type project or have had the most success, you know, then we can talk to them and find out which consultants that they actually used.
Yeah, I can give you a couple names of a few people to just reach out to and maybe even make an introduction. That's probably the easiest way, just because that way I can kind of connect you with people that have used some of the consultants on the list recently. There's one consultant in particular that gets used a lot. There's a reason for it. She's very good. She's definitely worked with small communities, larger communities. So she has a good reach across different size communities, which have different resource levels and different needs. And then I'll try to find, I don't always, most of them use the same vendor.
Okay.
But I think there's like one or two other vendors that sometimes get involved in some of the projects.
Okay.
To be honest, because so many communities have solar bylaws now, and there's just so much solar around, whether it's, you know, private or like municipal owned, a lot of people kind of know what they're doing in a lot of ways. Sometimes they need a little guidance on negotiating the contract. Solar landfill projects are complicated because you have, you know, you really have to look where your interconnection is. What are going to be the costs? Are there going to be upgrades, connecting to, you know, to the grid, going through DEP permits? Like that's a lot more of a complicated project, which is why they generally need a consultant. But when Margaret reached out and talked about this building, it was I think the 3rd time I've heard about this building and that it was supposed to have solar, that I was like, you know what, you guys really should just come in for Meta. Like if it would help you through the process, allow you guys to complete it, get some guidance, you know, it makes sense and you're a good fit for it.
And I'm assuming these consultants are probably well-versed in any type of grants that could be available to help us offset costs as well?
Yeah, they're probably, so what they will do is she'll be able to, or he'll be able to go over the different financing mechanisms you can use. A lot of people go forward with a PPA, which is when, you know, I don't know if you are familiar with PPAs, but power purchase agreement.
Power purchase agreement, yep.
Yeah, so it's when you're going to put it out to bid, the vendor's going to own it. You're going to be basically be an off taker, allows them to take any tax credits and adjust for those kind of things. And then it allows you to save basically from what you wouldn't be paying the utility and the difference in the two. But there's a lot that goes into it because there can be escalators, what's the price you're paying, is there going to be a permit the vendor has to pull, or is it, there's a lot of different things that can work into the contract that you move forward with. And that's where the consultant can help you with. But in general, unless you have like a grant to go towards the project that's going to buy it down, most communities do go forward to the PPA because you can't take advantage of you don't pay taxes, so you can't take advantage of certain credits that are out there.
Yeah. And those power purchase agreements
as well.
Just so I'm trying to remember back to some of my education on some of this stuff. Is this essentially like an agreement where they're like renting the space on the roof and then
it's the same thing as like a residential lease? Like you hear people either own it if they have the money, which is generally it could be the best option, but it's not, depending on what your certain finances are. And then there's a lot, leasing is still a good option, and it makes sense for on the municipal side, unless I said some towns have owned their systems. And if they're putting in, like if you had done the solar at the same time as the construction, some communities have chosen to put out the bond, roll the solar in, and then own it. They could go that route. Other communities have gotten, there has been grants in the past that could go towards the cost of the solar, and it buys down enough that they choose that they still want to own it. There's definitely more leased programs that go through like a PPA than own them. But there have been some communities that have been able to, like there's a couple I know that have gone and decided that they wanted to own the systems and take, be able to sell the RECs. And because when you do a PPA, they own they're going through the SMART program. If it was in the past, they would have owned the SRECs, things like that.
Okay. That's helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think that's another thing, like everything, one of the reasons we offer municipal energy technical assistance is because all the things, I just had a conversation with a sustainability director in a community who was asking me about like net metering, how it works, like all the different, and some of the same stuff I'm going on with you, and they have a meta grant. I'm like, make sure you sit in those meetings and like understand it when you're working with your consultant, because she's gonna know, like that's how you learn a lot of this terminology, because I mean, the average person wouldn't. And it's kind of like the net metering pieces can be complicated.
Yes, quite a bit.
So I would say next step is to get a consultant, and I will provide after this meeting tomorrow, I'll send Margaret a couple names. I'll let her know we discussed it. And then I said I'd give a couple different towns, and then I'll make an introduction to see if they'll just kind of pass on who they've worked with and if they've been happy.
Perfect, thank you.
Any more questions on the meta grant?
Are there any grants for roofs? Roof repair?
For what type of building?
The town offices.
So not for, so under schools, yes, because there's the accelerated repair program through Mass School Building Association, and that covers roofs, windows, boilers. Under green communities, you can come in for, the way that we've helped out with any funding on roof projects is generally when you're replacing your roof, you might be adding insulation or repairing the insulation, like replacing it, and we paid towards that. Outside of that, I'm not familiar with any specific grants for roofs.
Okay, well, it was installed in '94. It owes us nothing and it's leaking.
Yeah.
So maybe we could get some additional energy when we repair. We have to replace it.
Yep. Yeah, so if you're replacing the town offices, and I've definitely been in the attic because we did a huge weatherization project in there.
Okay.
in a previous grant. So
Correct.
if there was insulation involved in the project that was going to have energy savings, that would be the portion that we could pay for, which is usually minimal compared to a roof project. But that's the part that,
That's true, but if you have to do it anyway, you might as well
yep,
get whatever help you can get.
yep. Hopefully it doesn't damage any of the additional insulation stuff we already put in there, because that was a pretty big project that happened, I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago. Maybe 4.
Yeah, but that I think was over the fire department.
No,
Oh,
I thought, no, it's on the
because-
town offices side too.
Oh, okay.
But it happened on is it fire or police?
Well, public safety has their own little section off the town offices.
Yeah, we did some over there as well,
Offices
though. Yep, you're
were
correct.
Were formerly the elementary school.
Okay,
And then when they built the new school, once we got Solomon Pond tax money, they renovated and made it the town offices, and then they put on a brand new public safety wing.
okay. I'll
And
have to look to see if
had
it was,
Bad ice dam problems,
Yes.
particularly over the communication center.
Oh,
Yeah,
they
that
had
was
really bad
Judy's
ice
baby.
dams. Yeah, they had, until that weatherization went in. And then
Right.
it was interesting because the whole project was done. It was around like $80,000. And once just weatherization project, and once it was done, I remember Judy found one teeny spot that had an ice dam, and it's because they missed one little area.
Yep.
And that just one little area was easily identified. I know I talked to dispatch and they were very happy because it was the first time they didn't need to use an electric heater under their desk.
Correct.
They weren't
Good.
freezing.
Yep.
Yeah, so you're right. I'll have to look to see if it was on both sides of the building or just that side. It was a huge project. So,
Yep.
and it's been a few years. So you could
Yep.
be correct. It might just be that side. I'd need to look at it, but I definitely remember that it made a huge difference and all the ice dams
Yes.
went away.
okay.
All right.
Alrighty.
But yeah, if I hear of anything else, I'll let you know, but usually that doesn't fall under me unless it's on the, like I said, adding insulation into when you're doing the roof project. So as a whole, the Green Communities Program offers up to $20 million annually. The $20 million goes across competitive and designation grants. I'll explain that a little bit more. The way and where our funding comes from is outside of the state budget. It comes from 2 different funding sources: RGGI, which is Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, cap and trade auctions, and the ACP funds, which is Alternative Compliance Payments. It's when competitive suppliers don't meet the percentage of renewables they're supposed to have each year. They can offer to pay the difference through ACP funds, which then gets put into efficiency type programs. And then, as we've kind of been talking about, what types of projects get funded under the $20 million? It's efficiency type projects, so weatherization, LED lighting, which you guys recently just did in your elementary school, as well as VFDs, controls, and things like that. Stop me anytime if you guys have questions. So I wanted to put up a map of the Green Communities Program. We have 271 green communities. The most recent round in 2020 was 30 new green communities that are highlighted, that are in dark green, and then highlighted in the box at the bottom. You will notice that most of the state is almost green, which we're really happy about. I think I mentioned this earlier. The program started back in 2010, so it's just over 10 years old. And we're hoping that, more and more communities will continue to come in. We are currently reviewing this year's designation applications, hoping to make an announcement soon, and then you will see some new communities added to the list. I thought it'd be helpful to kind of let you guys know, in case you haven't been following Berlin's history as a green community. So the town was designated back in 2012, so it was one of my earlier adopters. Has received 4 grants totaling $454,000. That includes 1 designation grant. So when each community is designated, we want to say kudos to meeting all the criteria I'll go over in a minute, and becoming designated. So the designation grant is based on a formula. It's based on 125,000 as a base amount, and then additional funds based on the per capita and population of the community. And then in addition to that, once you've completed your designation grant and all the projects, you are eligible as a community to apply for what's called competitive grants. And those grants are up to $200,000. Each community is allowed to apply for one competitive grant each year. And that's where you come in for 3 additional grants. So that one designation grant with 3 competitive grants has totaled $454,000. Not all communities come in for the full $200,000. Berlin to date really hasn't maxed out their grant request, and that's why you're only seeing that $454,000. If you guys want more information on that, we actually have a list of all the grants we've given out on a summary Excel spreadsheet that we put up on our website. You can see all of them broken down and what each grant was for. This year, I'm happy to say we are rolling out a different form under competitive grants. We've decided instead, in the past, we just would have one annual opportunity in the spring for communities to apply. This year, we've actually decided to offer 2 grant rounds. So for the 2021 competitive grant cycle, we're going to have a spring grant and then a fall grant. Communities can only apply for one at one time, but it does give more flexibility depending on when green communities are ready to apply and also when they're trying to complete projects. A lot of schools want to finish the projects over the summer. Allowing 2 different times to apply allows them more flexibility with their own schedules.
Okay.
To date, since 2010, we've given out over $130 million between designation and competitive grants. So I kind of mentioned a community has to meet some criteria in order to be designated as a green community. These are the 5 criteria that Berlin committed to back in 2011 and then was designated in 2012. So the first is to adopt as of right siting. What that means is by right siting. It only has to be done in one way through generation, R&D, or manufacturing. And then for that siting, you just have to have expedited permitting, which means that a person can submit an application and be through the process within a 1 year's timeline. Criteria 3 is definitely the biggest piece and where Mass Energy Insight comes into play. Berlin put together an energy reduction plan and the hopes to reduce its usage by 20% over 5 years. A lot of communities have not been able to meet this goal. Your community is one of them. One of the main reasons is not for lack of reducing the usage actually at the building side. I've definitely seen a reduction from the projects done. I've noticed that your vehicle usage has gone up quite a bit. And that's one thing I've talked to Margaret about. So as a small community, it looks like you guys have had to bring on, additional emergency response. You've had, apartment buildings go in, things like that, which I think has increased what the usage has been on the vehicle end to responding to those additional buildings.
So we
And the malls.
And the malls, thank you for pointing that out too. I know you guys had a recent apartment building put in too, correct? The big apartment building?
Yes,
Yeah,
Riverbridge.
Yeah, they're putting that in. And then also the, I know we had to, Eloise, you might, or Peg, you might know better, but when we negotiated with Highland Commons, because of all the additional traffic that was going to be coming through Central Street or 62, that was, I think we predicted an uptick in need for police and fire. So, with that comes more calls, and that's probably part of the.
Yeah, so you guys set your baseline. So your baseline was set back in 2011, and those kind of changes within the community, which makes sense, has increased your vehicle usage. And because you guys have mostly exempt vehicles, you only have, I think, 1 vehicle that's actually subject to the fuel efficient vehicle policy. Most of your vehicles are either emergency response, which are exempt, or heavy duty DPW vehicles, which are also exempt. It hasn't given you as many opportunities to kind of reduce your fuel savings. One thing I would say, and we can chat a little bit about it for this year's grant round. A lot of communities are looking at the hybrid cruisers. A lot of communities have purchased the hybrid cruisers. We do give out. You have?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
The police chief has.
Oh, that's wonderful. I know the police chief has reached out in the past. I've seen him at, I know I saw him at an EV drive event, just testing out different cars too. So I know there was interest there. But the other thing too is we do provide funds towards hybrid vehicles to pay for the incremental cost from going from the standard Ford Interceptor to the hybrid. And if you guys were coming in this year and he was interested in purchasing another, I would definitely encourage you to do so, because I think any savings on the vehicle side for you guys is really the area that you probably need the most, especially if you are increasing your call volume. You know, the more efficient the vehicles can be, the better.
Thank you.
Yeah. And then the last one is to minimize life cycle costs in new construction. You guys adopted the stretch code multiple years ago. At the bottom, I just put in there, so I kind of referenced you guys getting assistance from Central Mass Regional Planning Commission. What they helped you with is submitting your annual report. So an annual report is due each November. We provide the template, and what you do is basically fill out the annual report across the 5 criteria I just mentioned, showing us how you're doing. Criteria 3 is definitely the biggest piece of the annual report, just because it's showing us what projects do you have planned to show more savings. How are you doing to date with your energy? Do you guys have any solar projects, such as the one you're looking at, that you need to report on? Things of that nature.
Okay.
Well, we updated all our street lights. That was our last big project.
Yep.
Yeah, and that was done through National Grid, correct? I know
Yes.
Tim mentioned it.
Yes. Yep.
Yep.
This is just a map of the stretch code communities that have, this map across the state of the communities that have adopted the stretch code. You'll see 284 in here. It's just a good indicator of who's looking to become a green community. As I showed you on a previous slide, 271 green communities. The difference of 13 are the ones looking to come in into the program.
Okay.
And then I just wanted to go over, we recently, a request from communities, have put up a key date slide. You'll see February 12th, that is the date where you need to have final reports in. Your final report is already in. The town is, Margaret is working with CMRPC to get questions answered on your annual report. If you can do both of those things, you'd be eligible to submit a competitive grant application in April, which is another date on there. I did want to talk just about the competitive grant. I hope you guys submit. I know Margaret reached out because you guys have gotten a study done recently on some projects that need to be done. I know you need a new rooftop unit at the town offices. I think that's one on the list. And then I know the vendor that worked with you, B2Q, offered some other types of projects as well, some BFDs. And in addition to maybe looking at, if you guys did do a roof project, maybe if insulation needs to be added. And then the last one would be that if you guys were gonna maybe purchase another hybrid cruiser, you could, what we allow is up to 2 cars, 5,000 each. And the cost to go from the standard Interceptor to the hybrid is about $3,500. And then the additional $1,500 can go towards equipment upgrades. I just want to preface, the equipment upgrades is not related to the hybrid portion. The Ford Interceptor that was rolled out in 2020 is a little wider, and it requires new light bars and such. So that would be for the standard or the hybrid. As you can see on here, it also discusses the date if you wanted to apply for REPA again, that Regional Energy Planning Assistance. I'm thinking Margaret's probably going to take advantage of that technical assistance again. I think it made it much easier submitting the annual report and getting assistance if you're looking to come in for a grant application and so on.
Yep.
So that would be her getting the Board of Selectmen to sign another memorandum of understanding with CMRPC so they could submit that to us to show your commitment.
Okay.
And those would probably be due in May.
Okay.
And then the dates throughout the rest of the year is just showing that we have another when Meta would be due for people looking to come in again, and also the next round of competitive grants, which would be in September.
Okay.
I know it's a busy slide.
Yeah,
Not all of them apply to you guys though.
Yeah.
But this is being recorded, right?
Yep. It is.
Okay, so we can re-look at it at our leisure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, the ones that I really want to point out to you is February 12th, making sure you guys are eligible for competitive this year. If you wanted to submit for April 9th, and then knowing the cycle for the Regional Energy Planning Assistance, And if you guys didn't make the spring round, when you would want to apply in the fall for the fall competitive block. And then I'm sure Margaret's interested in when the next annual report's due.
Mhm.
The rest of the dates are, if you're going to look to apply for a green community, and you guys are already designated, so you don't need to pay attention to the July 1 and December 30 deadlines.
Perfect. This is very
It's
helpful.
nice having some we can just cross off.
Right? Just check it right off. You've already
Yep.
done that.
Excellent.
And then that was it for me.
All right. Well, this has been informative and helpful. I think it gives us an idea of the interaction, how you guys help, and the other parts of assistance that are available to us. I think that's a big part of it too, and what we can and can't use certain things for. That's that's also quite important. And then, so one question I have is, you mentioned that when we filed for the green community, that we basically had to file a baseline, and we've had considerable changes in our baseline since we became a green community. Is there an opportunity to re-baseline based on the changes?
I mean, some communities have requested setting a new baseline. Generally, that needs to have a clear reason why. Sometimes it is, it could just be the data set that the baseline was off of. I will reiterate that there are quite a few communities that haven't been able to meet that 20% goal within 5 years. I do think that, we could have, if you wanted me to come to another meeting after you guys got access to Mass Energy Insight, that would be possible if you wanted that. I mean, once you get on to that tool, you'll be able to see what I'm talking about. You'll be able to kind of see, okay, how have we progressed over the last 5 years? Oh, I can see that our vehicle fuel usage has gone up. Oh, actually, look at our buildings. Look at the weatherization project at the town offices. Look at the improvements there. You'll be able to kind of track those changes, and then, maybe decide if you still would want to change your baseline, or maybe there's really it's not about updating the baseline. It's more about what projects you need to kind of move forward with, or where to prioritize.
Okay.
I had one question. Berlin Memorial School is now part of a K through 12 region.
Okay.
Does that change our insight?
No. So can you elaborate on how that's changed?
Well,
Like, is
the town still owns the building, but it is fully under the authority of the school superintendent and the school committee.
Okay. Eloise, was that not the case when you became designated?
No, this just happened in 2018, 2019.
Okay. So one additional question. So what is the arrangement if the town still owns the building? Is the town still responsible for capital improvement costs over a certain dollar amount?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know what that dollar amount is?
I believe it's between 50,000 and 100,000 a year, because they don't want the building to fall apart.
Okay. So
a minimum of 50, and depending on what else.
Okay. So when you guys decided to become a green community, you could have chosen to include all of your schools if you wanted to. And if you did include,
the other schools were in the town of Boylston.
Yep,
Yeah.
and that would have been fine. You just would have included the superintendent a little bit more.
Okay.
And so what I'm saying is there's a lot of towns that do include the middle and senior high school, or the middle schools. And so that's kind of looks like the relationship you have now, which is similar to other green communities. It seems like you guys are still involved and have a contractual relationship for capital improvement projects. If an HVAC system needs to go in, it's sounding like those kind of projects would still need to go to town meeting for approval.
Correct.
Yes.
So, I mean, that's similar to other towns that are green communities as well. But it is good to know, because if there was a change to the program, which it needed, to go, like something needed to go back to the Board of Selectmen, let's say, it hasn't happened, but if that did, then it would also should go to the superintendent too, to make sure that they're on board. being that the school's included in the energy reduction plan as part of the community.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
thanks for letting me know that.
Okay.
That's all I had.
Okay. Perfect. Well, Kelly, thank you again very much for the education.
And I'll take, and as a takeaway, I'll definitely follow up with Margaret tomorrow and help you guys kind of get started on looking into a consultant for the
Yeah.
Meta Grant. I think that's a good first step. And then because I threw a lot of information at you, if you have, so I do believe you guys are going to be looking to come in for a competitive grant. Definitely just reach out to Margaret and see how that's going. I'm not sure if you'll come in for the April deadline or the fall. Both would be great, but
Yep.
she'll probably be able to update you on that as it progresses.
Okay, perfect.
All right, well, thanks for having me.
All right, thanks, Kelly.
Thank you.
All right. So that took up a good portion of the time. I know I think this was scheduled from 7 to 8. We still have a bunch of other items on our agenda, some of which we did talk through already. So the first thing that we had as an open issue that we wanted to be able to address is, I know Margaret's not here, but we talked about making sure there was an article for the Energy Stabilization Fund and being able to actually fund, take the proceeds that are supposed to be tabbed for that fund and actually put them in there because it was approved to open the Energy Stabilization Fund. However, the funding mechanism was not added and approved so that it could automatically be transferred from one to the other. Without Margaret here, I don't know how much more we can do. Peg, I don't know if you have any insight into that, or Eloise.
Oh, I can neg Margaret.
We'll ask Margaret. And Eloise, I didn't want to interrupt Kelly, but we put in a grant to have an inspection on the town roof. So, and we received approval for it. So not only they'll come in and they'll inspect the roof, but we also, part of that grant was to get safety rails up on the roof too. You know, didn't know that as the guys are up there shoveling, you know, they're one step back away of tumbling down onto the pavement and the grass. So I think that was close to $6,000, and Dave is working to get the people in there to get it done.
Thank you. Is that available on the town's website?
I'll look. I know Margaret has had it in her report, but I'll see if I can poke around and find it and direct you to it.
Okay, thank you.
Betcha.
And what I will tell you is you don't have to beat up Margaret on that. I'll go ahead and I'll take that and I'll follow up with her on that article to make sure that it is out there. I know that I think there was one out there before, so I'm going to try to just recreate that and try to do a little bit of the work for her and pass it over to her. Just make sure it's in the right format, and then we can get that kind of on the docket. So the next open issue was the town barn and the Meta Grant. That's one of the things that we talked plenty about with Kelly, and I think that we feel pretty good about that. We'll get the names of those consultants from those communities, and then Steve and I will work through that and we'll get that underway as quickly as possible. It was helpful to understand that we're most likely looking to do it through a PPA as opposed to most likely actually purchasing the system. But it'll be helpful to have communities that have done similar projects so that maybe we can actually talk with them and see what their experience was as well, even before we work with a consultant. The next item on the list was the 2020 annual report contribution from the Energy Committee. So Steve, this is just us wanting to understand if there's anything necessary from Steve and I for that 2020 annual report contribution. Or is it I know Kelly mentioned that I think we're getting some assistance answering some questions that are required for that particular report. And I just wanted to check with the folks here, just to make sure that we weren't missing anything and that Steve and I weren't missing part of what might have come with responsibility on the Energy Committee, that we ourselves had to prepare something.
I think you should something and then send it around, and then as people read it, they'll go, oh, and we forgot this, or you know, they'll put in their 2 cents. Don't worry, people are very vocal.
Well, I think that, I mean, one of our base question is like, where do we start, really?
Yeah.
It's like, what do we need to put in it? That way we know.
Well, look in previous town reports.
Okay.
You're supposed to put on what you've done over the past year, or what's happened. Like in, I think it's June of this year, they have to go back out to, right now they've worked with Colonial, and that's to get the pricing that the town residents pay, unless they opt out and go to a third party.
Yeah.
So you just have to keep on top of all those types of deadlines. And they seem to come faster the older you are.
True.
Yeah, I would keep an eye on the Berlin Neighbors Connect. There is always quite a bit of activity regarding opting in and opting out, and my rates have gone through the roof, and no one told me, and why are we doing this? And even though
Yeah.
the selectmen will post information on it, every so often it pops up. Like over the summer, it was horrible because I think everyone's air conditioner was on and everyone in the house was home.
Yeah.
So that's swirling around the town. No one, Barry, you know, bless his soul, said, hey, why don't you step up and, you know, do something, and everyone just complained. So just be aware that rumbles every so often.
Yep. I am aware. I saw some of that over the summer. I'm not a big social media person, but
Yep.
my wife showed me, and I was like, oh. So I went out and kind of read through it, and that was one of my first thoughts was, well, people are home 24/7 right now. They're not leaving their house. They're not changing their thermostats. You should really be checking the kilowatt hours, not the cost of your bill. Okay, so we'll check the prior reports to see what the contribution from the energy committees were, and you know we're at a bit of a disadvantage because we just started and we weren't. You know, we're trying to prepare for the 2020 annual report, so we can look at what was done in the last one. So Steve, that means we just need to look and make sure that we understand what's been done from July 1st through June 30th.
No, the town report is from January through December.
The
That's
20
calendar year.
the 2020 annual report is
Yeah.
on a
And
calendar.
the last paragraph, you can say, and this is what we're looking forward to do in the next, you know, these are our future plans.
Okay.
I would make sure to mention that you did, CMRCP did do the annual report, and we're grateful.
Okay.
And you can ask Margaret for that because she has filled in some of the chinks.
Okay. Okay. Another item that we had on the list was about the maintenance of the streetlights. So again, you know, I think what we were looking for here and what we needed to be able to discuss is, you know, what I think the issue that we have is, you know, we swapped out all those lights, but we need to have some type of maintenance contract with somebody because we don't have the ability to do that on our own. Do I have that right?
Sort of.
Okay. Where did I go wrong?
I think that was one of the reasons why Dave Smith would like a bucket truck. But you can talk to Dave Smith. You seem comfortable with him. What he would do. Margaret, I believe, was also going to be talking to the town of Clinton about getting a shared truck, and that would be one of the duties that they could take over.
Okay.
Tim Wysocki did try to reach out with the town, the Boylston Municipal Light Company, but they had their own woes at the time. Margaret did try to talk to Clinton about assuming that duty, but that didn't go. At that time, everybody was just so overwhelmed with the pandemic and, you know, can we meet? Can we 6 feet apart in a truck? The whole 9 yards.
Okay. And I don't know this. I know that, you know, obviously we neighbor Hudson, and Hudson has Hudson Power and Light. They're a different county. Does that matter? Can we still?
No, I'm trying to think. Somebody called Hudson and they said they weren't interested at that time because they were experiencing a lot of growth. And so until they knew where the growth was and the volume and stuff, they didn't wish to
Okay.
enter into conversation.
So we had them installed through National Grid, right? So
Well, National Grid paid a lot. They used a, I'd have to go back through the documents.
Well, I'm just wondering if instead of spending the money on a bucket truck or getting into a contract with one of the neighboring towns, if we can contract them to maintain them for us.
Right.
Well, you could. It was just double the cost. And they said supposedly the lights have an average life of 10 years.
Okay. So
Okay.
we shouldn't, unless somebody's shooting them out with BB guns, we shouldn't have to.
Well, that
worry
and
much.
or all you need is, you know, to have a massive car accident
Yep.
and take some out, and or, you know, a hurricane.
Okay.
Yeah.
But for your routine stuff, it should be good to go. If you need more information on that, I'm pretty sure Tim Wysocki would make himself available.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, if they don't need to be, I mean, granted, nothing happens to them. If they don't need to be maintained except for every 10 years, then we have a little time to figure this out. We don't
Yeah.
need to.
Well,
turn around.
that's where I
Fine,
suggest
fine.
that you talk to Dave Smith.
Yep.
Yeah.
A lot of work with that, with Tim Wysocki.
Okay. Okay. We also had on there the electric vehicle charging stations. So we did, Margaret's funneled around a grant that is out there right now. So we can look into that a little bit further. She put the chief on that email as well, I believe, so he was aware of it. So again, we talked about this a little bit before you got on, Steve. I looked into that a little bit more deeply, so that's something that we would have to really gain an understanding of. And I'm not sure how we would do this and if the town can help, but how many electric vehicles are actually in the town that could potentially use those stations, because one of the criteria for them to actually help pay for those stations is that they have to be if you want the whole thing paid for, it has to be on public property, and both the public and the municipal people have to be able to use it to charge their vehicles. Right. So there's some power consumption there that we might have to pay for.
Yeah. So that's one of the things that I saw when I was reading through it. And one of my questions is that if it's not just a dedicated charging station for the chief's car, where the town is just obviously going to pay for it, and it's actually a public area, then it's just going to be that electric bill is going to have to be paid for somewhere.
Right.
Whether there's a code or, I don't know much about the charging stations personally, but that's the thing that jumped out to me.
Yeah, and that's what I felt the same way. I was like, whoa, okay. So once people start finding out about that, and we would need to publicly post that that's available, I would imagine it would get some usage, right? And then we have to be able to pay for that electricity. And I wonder if that's counterproductive to us keeping our green community designation as power consumption going up as opposed to down because of the use of it.
Well, I mean, my understanding is that they would be being public use, is that, you know, they're just like a gas station. You're going to pay for whatever electricity that you actually use. It wouldn't be tied in free electricity for the for anyone who comes by to use it.
So it would have to be metered, you mean? So then the person
Yeah.
using it would meter and get a bill?
My understanding is like whether it's like, whether it's a Tesla charging station or it's any of the, any of the other like, DC charging stations out there is, I mean, it's a gas station. You
Okay.
set up an account. It's usually, a little more high tech where you're just using the proximity of your phone. But you're still paying for the electricity in one way.
Okay.
So that's the thing is like, I mean, we would have to find a way for the chief to, pay for the electricity or the use of it, and then have the town pay for it because it's a town vehicle,
Okay. Yeah, put it on. He's probably got a card, right? So it's just like a gas card, right? You just got
something. Yeah. I mean, it's probably not that complicated of a thing to get around.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I don't think we're the committee to make that decision.
Right. Okay. The other thing that we had on the agenda as an open issue was the 2021 Green Communities Report. So after talking with Kelly, obviously they're going to post that assistance again on combis. We just need to make sure that we're reaching out and ensuring that we apply for their assistance again to have them help us, because clearly it was helpful last year because they did the report for us. So we need to just mark our calendars and ensure that we're doing what we need to do once that hits combis for us to reach out and put in a bid to say, yes, we would like this service again for the 2021 Green Communities Report. And that way that will help, Steve and I, obviously, and always we can assist them in it, but it'll be helpful to have them drive it since they're most comfortable with it.
Right, and we know it obviously needs to be updated. I feel like when I popped in, I heard you talking about the three buildings that use the most amount of energy.
Yeah.
And the barn was not on that list for last year's report.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. For the town building.
Oh, I didn't even notice that.
Yeah. Town building either. It was the library, the Bullard House, and BMS. So
Right.
Not having the town building and not having the barn seems like a bit of a miss. So we're going to have to probably take a look at that.
Yep.
So if there aren't any questions on the open issues, Eloise or Peg, are there any other questions on those open issues that we ran through?
No, I think you're doing a great.
Okay.
And I did dig around and find the copy of the grant proposal and some background information. Eloise, I sent it to the town clerk address, and then Stephen and Jason, I sent it to your email as well. So just
Thank
wanted
you.
to keep you guys in the loop on that. You
Thanks.
betcha.
Perfect, thank you. So energy committee vacancies, right? Obviously, we got some more seats out there.
Yep,
Steve
you
and I,
got two.
two, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so Steve and I have been kind of thinking about that and trying to think about who we know, who we've worked with, and who may or may not be willing. Peg, to your point about the Berlin town neighbors, a whole lot of people are complaining about the power agreement, but nobody really wants to join up or do anything about it.
Correct. It's the same with cable. Everyone's complaining about Spectrum and how the cost of Spectrum is going through the roof. And
Yeah,
Barry, he's like, all right, get out there and get on the committee. And of course, I got tagged in it, and I responded and said, here's where the application is.
yep,
I got crickets.
yeah,
I had a great deal on Spectrum my first year here, and then it doubled.
yeah.
Yeah.
and it just goes up a couple of bucks every year, but I mean, it's what happens when you have a single provider.
Correct, that's just it. No one, I know they invited other, prospects to come in and bid, and people looked at the size of the town and went, thanks, no.
Yeah,
So,
Right,
unfortunately,
because
Spectrum Charter came in and said, sure, I'll take you for internet services. And I think people just bundle instead of trying to look for other opportunities for their phone and TV, et cetera.
yeah.
right. Well,
have-
what is it? I forget, what's this may be a little off topic, but the Tesla got their new program that's in beta testing right now. And in the next year or two should be full satellite internet available like anywhere in the United States.
Oh, really?
It's supposed to be competitive with like land-based systems.
Well, that's interesting. That sounds like a very Elon Musk thing to do, actually.
Yeah, well, he's going to put hundreds of satellites in the sky.
Yeah.
So that's a very Elon Musk thing to do.
So he can fly up there and maintain them.
Exactly.
gives him reason.
But in the coming years, there will be options, and there always are options. I mean, there's you can get satellite for rural communities easily.
Yeah.
It's like you look at the Midwest, it's like they still have internet, but you just don't have the same kind of speeds that you can with a ground mount system.
Yeah.
Right.
So
I mean,
there's options out there. People
Yeah.
just are going with the easy one and complaining about it.
I mean, I'm fortunate now. So we lived on Allen Road before. Now we're over on Gates Pond, and so we were tied to Charter back then. I actually never really had issues with the internet. I had massive issues with their cable, and but when we moved over here, we are on that line, so we are able to get FiOS internet. We can't. There's no FiOS TV at all, but we're able to get the internet, which is definitely better. It's a bit more stable and it's quite a bit faster, which has come in handy since we have 3 children at BMS. And I work from home most of the time, and my wife has been sporadically. So 5 Zooms kind of at the same time is a little bit of a drain on the bandwidth. So we make it through, but we haven't had traditional cable in, I don't know, probably 4 or 5 years now. We've had YouTube TV since it came out, and did everything we needed it for. But the same thing though, the price of that's gone up too, because the cable networks are starting to price gouge them.
I mean, we cut the cord when we were living back in Marlboro, so it's been like 10 years for us since we've had cable. But we do internet only.
Yep. Same here. That's all we have.
Was it Spectrum? Whoever we have. Like $79 for internet only.
Yeah.
Whereas in Marlboro, I was getting it for $30.
Yeah. So what we'll do is we'll continue to talk. Steve had an idea of somebody to reach out to the other day, so we'll reach out to another one of the residents that we think is going to be interested in it, and I'm still trying to think of some others as well, because we want to make sure we're out there before we don't want to just post it and say join, because we're okay with doing that if we get to a point where we can't think of others, but we want to try to go through the folks that we know and we have experience working with, because we want people that are going to get stuff done too, right? Not
Right.
just,
Yeah, we didn't think it would be appropriate to have the committee filled with parents of 3rd graders.
correct.
I don't know, some of them are pretty sharp.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say, Eloise, there's already a bunch of committees that have parents who act like 3rd graders, but
But you also have to look at who has skills that you need.
Correct.
Right.
Yes. That's a big part of it. Yes.
So I guess, we can put it out to Eloise and Peg. Do you guys know anyone who might be interested?
I would have arm twisted them already.
yeah, same here.
Okay. Good to know. So it looks, Steve, like I'm still on the hook for what you told me in the very beginning, which is I know how to build teams. So I will do my duty as chair and team builder extraordinaire and get this thing moving.
I guess I mean, one question I have for like committee members is, you know, is it limited to Berlin town residents only, or can Berlin town employees also be part of this? Because they may actually have an interest in, you know, being, you know, part of their, I mean, essentially you're buying into your employer, right? So is there a
Pretty sure-
limitation there?
I'm pretty sure you need to be a town resident. But I mean,
Okay.
I can look at the guidelines.
Okay.
All right, it's just a question because there might be some
If
people
they,
who.
I think if they had specialized skills,
Yep, we'd let it
there's
go.
nothing that says you can't have somebody come in, just as we had Kelly Brown tonight, you
Right.
know, and designate them as a consultant.
Good.
It's just you really, really want people who are voters so that they can stand up at town meeting and pitch your project.
Mhm.
Okay.
You don't get town meeting support, you're
Dead.
in the water.
Okay.
Yep.
So that being said, I guess the other question that I would ask is, you know, when you come up with teams like this and knowing that we need kind of that piece of it, right? So town meetings, I don't know historically how well attended town meetings have been and which of the town demographic usually populates the town meeting. Is
You get
there,
about 300, and there
Okay.
will be about 125 that will come out come hell or high water.
And
okay,
it really
Don't
depends
care.
upon
I
what's-
know where I'm gonna sit.
So we're
it
looking
depends
at 5 to 10% of the town, roughly.
Yeah, you don't get a big big outturn for the town meetings, and honestly, it depends upon what's on the agenda. You know, a couple years ago, there was you know, a couple things for the school, you know, to pass money for a new playground, and the parents came out in mass, and as soon as that item was done, out they went, and
Yep.
then
Hey, they had babysitters.
I know we got
Cut them some
babysitters.
slack.
I
Yep.
know, and you know, our fun-loving marijuana people, you know, they come out in mass, and then when that goes away, they go away. So it truly depends.
okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that was late in the meeting. So, I mean, they were forced to stick around for quite a while.
They were not happy.
I remember that was I think that might have been the first town meeting that I had gone to.
That's a good one. Yeah, and
Well,
really that question there is, you know, I want to make sure that we can have, you know, if we need a voice from, you know, multiple parts of the town or multiple parts of the demographics of the town, that we fill our seats appropriately and diverse enough so that we can articulate what we need to articulate to the different, you know, there's clearly different populations and different segments within the town, and I want to make sure that, you know, what we want and what we're going to want to do or need to do as a town, that we have, you know, people that understand maybe that perspective as well, outside of us just, you know, interviewing and talking with people.
part of that is like when the selectmen have one of their talks up at, well, they used to have 19 Carter or the town hall. You go up and you make sure that you're on the agenda. Why? Do you need another night out? No, but they can keep replaying it, and you know, you have
Oh,
to
I-
go before different boards.
Yeah, our next coffee talk is mid-March, so
Okay.
you know, it might be a really good opportunity for you both or the three of you to come and talk a little about it, and you know, pitch yourself. We've had coffee talks where people will stand up and say, I don't have time to commit to a committee for 3 years. However, if there is a small portion of something that I can do for a committee, I will help. So, you know, you might
Yeah.
want to throw something out there and be able to get, you know, who knows, somebody from up on Sawyer Hill who might be interested in, you know, green communities and that, and, you know, bring them in as well.
Okay.
It's helpful if you were just a tad more specific.
Yep.
This is
Okay.
a certain segment. We estimate it will take 2 or 3 months
Yep.
or whatever.
Okay, all right, that's helpful. And hey, look, another night out is not a bad thing. I'll remind you, our kids are 5, 7, 8, and 9. So
Oh,
another night out isn't frowned upon, especially in the middle of this past year pandemic where it's 24/7.
Yep.
So, okay, good. So one of the things that we did want to do, and I want to be sensitive to the time, it's additional topics, we don't necessarily have to get to all of them, right? But maybe we'll put it on for the next meeting, where I would like to see us be able to develop kind of a mission and a vision, or resurrect whatever was there before, so that we can update the webpage, we can start talking about what we want to do, and have kind of some guiding objectives, including objectives for 2021. So what are we looking to be able to do in 2021?
You will find that out once you get the report.
Yeah,
When you have a new report done, you go for the low-hanging fruit.
yep,
You look at everything, and then some of the things that are more expensive, you might have to plan them over 2 or 3 years, or how can we combine them more
Okay.
viable? Some of those will just be once you see them.
and in the report that you're mentioning, that's the what report are you referencing that is going to help inform us of what we probably should have for objectives?
Aren't we going to be applying for grants? Don't you have somebody come out?
I'm not following.
Well, go back and look at Kelly Brown's presentation.
Yep. And if we
And
look
didn't
at
she
that,
say that there were certain things that have to happen?
oh yes, yeah, yep. There's
So
certain,
that will inform your decision, once you see what the results are from that.
okay,
And if you privately know what your needs are, then you try to match them up.
okay,
Like, I didn't know that the schools could go through the school building assistance for a new roof, because I thought they had it on for, like, I thought next year. But maybe they should apply now, because it will take a year.
okay,
Just because you apply doesn't mean you'll get it either.
right,
Mhm.
okay. So I guess I wasn't thinking about as I'm thinking through this, and I'm thinking about Energy Committee, and I'm thinking about that grant cycle that she was talking about, and maybe I just have this incorrect, but I'm thinking that there's $200,000 that we could apply for. We need to have specific things that we would want to apply for that particular energy grant, right? It has to be energy related. Do I have that right?
Yes, you're right, but usually it has to be in a third-party report. Okay, because the third party will list out all the technical things, and they do this for a living. So they probably use boilerplate information.
Okay, so we would have to have, like you're saying, know what we want to get done, have like the evaluation like we're going to be having for the solar.
Correct.
And then once we have that evaluation, we know where we kind of want to try to pigeonhole those grants.
Correct. Because this is all the support documentation that you're going to have to submit in order to get the grant. Because they want to make sure that it can really happen. They know these people. Did they price it right? They know which developers or which consultants follow through, and they don't have to worry about it, and which ones is always a problem.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Most of it, Steve, is what we're saying is just most of it's really just tied to the town barn project,
Well,
right?
that's the star, but let's not lose sight of anything else that comes up that we're not even aware of. but a
Okay.
professional would be.
So Eloise, what I'm thinking is, so I thought we were told specifically that that consultant that we're going to hire for the town barn evaluation can't evaluate anything else other than the system for the town barn.
I think if you're asking for that, for one specific thing, that's true. But I know when we had the people come in and they looked at the Berlin Memorial School and the town offices, and they looked at the heating system, they looked at water cooling, they looked at the toilets. The toilets had like a 25-year payback because we're so small. It would save water. If they're broken, that's when you fix them. But there are things you don't do because the payback is so poor unless you have an issue.
Mhm.
Okay.
All right, so it sounds like specifically for the town barn, we're tied into how the grant was written for the evaluation of the solar. Whereas, I mean, we'll keep our eyes open for something like that in the future. And if we apply for another, if they have another grant coming up, we can apply and we can take a look and see what the nice to haves would be around the town and see if we can get that evaluation, those kinds of evaluations.
Right.
I
It would be
thought I
nice-
sent, excuse me. Steve.
Go ahead.
I thought I sent around a email I got today about solar canopies leasing.
I didn't see anything today.
I did not either.
Well, then I'll try it again.
Okay.
Well, leasing is the cheapest is usually to buy it outright. Then the
Right.
next process is leasing or buying it secondhand. I mean, there's a
yeah.
pecking order.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, we definitely want to look at all of our options when it comes to when we're choosing it, because one of the nice things when you're leasing is that something goes wrong, they're responsible for the maintenance.
Yeah.
And that may not be a cost that the town wants to incur. But at the same time, then we're not getting full benefit of the renewable energy credits, if there are any anymore.
Right. Yeah, the maintenance costs in those systems can be considerable if something happens.
Correct. But that's why you need the documentation in front of you before you make an informed decision.
Yep.
Right.
I agree.
You have to be able to defend it. That's all I'm saying.
Yep. I agree.
Okay. Yeah.
All right.
Don't worry, Eloise. It won't take us too long to get into a groove.
Yep.
I'm not worried.
You'll be able to stop explaining stuff for us eventually.
Yeah.
That's okay. I just want to make sure I make sense.
Yep.
Okay, tell me that.
All right. So then we'll continue, like I said, the brainstorming for ideas. I think part of this, it's pretty clear what our objective is for the first part here of this year, which is we got to get that consultant, we got to get that evaluation, and then see what they come up with, and then make a choice so that it can be, presented at a town meeting for approval, right? So that's
Yep.
pretty much the process that we have. So is there a date that we have to work towards for town meeting, that we have to have everything?
I don't know, because usually if you need money, you have to have the notify capital planning by what, November 1, Peg?
Yeah, it's soon. I'm trying to find the calendar that Margaret went over last night. It lays out when the warrant opens and when people can start to submit their articles.
I know
and
it
then when
usually closes around Valentine's.
Yeah, Eloise, I want to say that. So I don't know if it opens maybe next week. So
I think you're right. I did attend that meeting.
Yeah, I did too, but well, so if there's something that you guys want to get on, get on the town meeting, I think there's pretty much a template. So honestly, all you need to do is write up like a summary and kind of write like a little benefit statement below it and, submit it to the selectmen. And then we're going to go through them. More than likely, it'll probably be a 2-night meeting since the one in May was so short and we didn't have a special town meeting. So we might look at trying to divide, maybe finance one night and all other fun things another night for that. But yeah, that timeline is coming up soon. So even if you submit something and it's not correct, we'll work with you to get it how it needs to be.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Yeah, so we need information. So let's get our consultant. Let's
Yep.
get our report from them. And then
Yep.
we'll take the next steps and we'll go from there.
Yeah,
Good,
yep.
thank you.
Core
And
key
we're around to
objectives.
help. So if you guys
Oh,
need.
when's
anything-
the next time you want to meet?
Yep, that's the next item on our list is the next meeting, and kind of agenda for that meeting. I'm trying to find a calendar. Hold on.
So 4 weeks out is the 17th. Do we want to do 4 weeks or do we want to do monthly?
Give
I've only
Strengths,
adjusted by a few days.
you can put it on for the 17th, and if you can get a consultant and get your report by then you're good to go. If not, you might have to cancel the meeting and push it out.
Okay,
I mean,
All right.
that's really normal.
okay. So let's do that. We'll plan for the 17th,
At what time?
7 p.m.
Okay,
So we'll schedule that.
Yep.
So one of the things that we wanted to try to do each meeting and close it, it's getting a little late right now, so it's probably not going to happen this week.
Yep.
Is we wanted to try to set the next meeting's agenda, date and time. That way, when this meeting is over, like tomorrow, I can go in, I can post the minutes because they've been approved, and then set the meeting with the agenda and get it on the calendar well in advance. But I think just because of timing right now, Jay,
Yeah.
let's set the agenda over the next like couple of days. I mean, I'm not going to be available for a few days. So
Steve,
maybe
you
like-
can, as soon as we hang up, you can put
Yep.
on the agenda. And then next week, Jason can go in and amend it.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll do a super simple agenda, like some of
Yeah.
the ones
A
that we-
skeleton one, yeah.
and then we can agree on some additional detail and then we can go and edit it like
Yep.
next week.
That works.
Okay.
All right?
All right.
All right.
So any other questions, comments, issues, concerns?
I'm glad you're hanging out. In.
If there are no other questions, issues, or concerns, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All right. Thank you, everybody. The meeting will come to an end at approximately 8:34 p.m. on January 20th, and I will stop the recording and exit.